So welcome back, everyone. I appreciate you all joining. Kyle and I were just saying how we get excited because it's above zero. So hopefully it's above zero where you are as well. So thanks for joining us for this lunch and learn all around OrbitNote. So hopefully you'll find this interesting and something that you can utilize with your students. And if you have questions, make sure you reach out or look at the resources in the recordings. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Kyle, and let you roll with the next 29 minutes.
Awesome. Perfect. Welcome, everyone. If you've been joining our series from the beginning of January, welcome back. Really excited about our session today as we're talking really about PDFs and how OrbitNote can really help enhance the experience with having PDFs read, but also being able to annotate with OrbitNote as well. So as Stacy mentioned, yes, I'm based just outside Milwaukee. So today is going to hit 13 degrees. And so it feels super warm when I take my dog outside because that has been a nightmare. So if you have a dog and you've been struggling through this cold weather, I empathize with you because I have been there all week with my puppy and the bitter cold that we are experiencing here in Wisconsin. I know you are there in all parts of Iowa. To get started, this is not actually a quote, but this is what I have been hearing from educators throughout Iowa that maybe have recently got on Read and Write or are utilizing Read and Write as they're a great accessibility tool as part of that UPAR license. And so what I'm hearing is they're saying our students are using Read and Write on the websites, on learning management systems, Google Apps, but what about PDFs? That's like the next question I typically get. Once they've, experienced Read and Write, gotten to play with some features on the web in Google Docs, Google Slides, but it's inevitable it comes up about PDFs. And so that's really what we're going to focus on today is PDFs. We're going to talk about some things that are that'll be included within your subscription, within that Read and Write license subscription. So super excited to talk about that today. I am Kyle Krause. If you're joining for the very first time in our Lunch and Learn series session, my email is there. Please feel free to reach out to me, especially since some of the features today that we're going to be showing are only part of the premium version of OrbitNote, which is actually a paid version. And so if you want more information or you want to see a more thorough demonstration of OrbitNote in action, feel free to save my email there and reach out to me and we can connect and do a follow-up along those lines. So what we're going to be covering today, so we're going to talk about Read and Write, OrbitNote, what's included. We'll also talk about things that are not included, but that are part of that more premium version of OrbitNote, if that would be a solution for a district. We'll talk about how to get started with OrbitNote. We'll look at inaccessible PDFs. This always comes up. How do we know if a document is accessible, if it's inaccessible? How can we make it accessible if it is inaccessible? We'll take a look at that today. We'll take a demo look at some of the things that we're looking at. We'll take a closer look at in action. And then we've included some resources in the slide deck as well. As I mentioned, Stacy has put that slide deck in the resources for us. She's also put it in the chat here. So use this slide deck as that resource, as there are links to things within the slide deck that'll take you to some other places. So OrbitNote, what are we talking about? So OrbitNote really is that part of Read and Write for your PDFs. So whether that's creating, converting, connecting, it's all about taking those documents, those PDFs, those typical worksheets we print for our students. It's making them digital and it's really engaging with them in some new and exciting ways. So whether we want to make these documents more accessible to be read to our students, whether we want to create that collaborative space where teachers can comment, put extra notes, put extra details, students can respond back. That's kind of what we're all talking about here. So just not having that PDF necessarily read, but going beyond that and making it more engaging. So quick note, so OrbitNote is the PDF reader and annotation tool of Read and Write. So part of your Read and Write subscription, you get a version of OrbitNote. So there is a complete premium paid version, and then there's the OrbitNote version that is already included with your Read and Write license. Your OrbitNote accessing it, you would use the same sign-in, so your school email that you use for Read and Write, you're going to use that same email for OrbitNote as well. When we talk about the toolbar, one of the things I love about the OrbitNote toolbar, so this is actually the OrbitNote toolbar, is that actually most of it is the read and write toolbar. So it looks the same, has the same exact feel. So whether your students were working, in their learning management system, maybe it was Schoology, Google Classroom, on the web, they're going to have those same features available to them in OrbitNote as they're working with PDFs. I'm going to show you one of my favorite features within OrbitNote that you get with your read and write license is that highlightability. So actually being able to highlight and extract parts of a PDF out into a Google Docs to do some other things with. So on the other side, then you have the OrbitNote tools. These are really your annotation tools. So you can see you've got your shapes, freehand draw, your text annotations. All of that is going to be really what we call our annotations. So things that we can put on the page, we can respond to questions within a PDF worksheet. And so this is your OrbitNote toolbar. I've linked actually a little cheat sheet here because I know we're talking about what's included with your read and write license and what's premium OrbitNote. So if you actually go ahead and click on this link here, it's going to take you over to this matrix, which will actually show you the comparison of what you'll actually get with your premium read and write license, and then what would be that paid version on the right-hand side. So really use this as a reference. If you're wondering why, hey, I don't have this feature, refer back to this matrix because this is what's going to help you decide what you get versus what you don't get. And again, if you have questions, like as a follow-up, please reach out to me about, payment or what the cost of some of this license stuff are. We're not going to go through that today because I'm not a salesperson, but we have a team that works throughout the state of Iowa, and we can direct that conversation further. So let's talk a little bit about why OrbitNote. So, read and write works where your students work, and really OrbitNote then takes it to that next level when we talk about supporting inclusion. So whether your students are on the web, LMS, now with PDFs, they have the ability to have those PDFs read to them. They can interact with them. They have that easy interface, which makes it really simple and easy to learn and to use some of those features like building vocabulary lists, collecting highlights, and using the dictionary all within OrbitNote PDF. So these just give you kind of many different reasons why. It pairs seamlessly with read and write. Obviously, we love that functionality of having those same features within your read and write toolbar. So it's not like you're going to have to learn a completely new toolbar when you're introducing this and working with students. So love that ability to create some of those things within there. With OrbitNote, we can have that text read aloud. We can create and share those worksheets very easily with our students. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the learning management systems that we already integrate with to make this sharing much more easy for you and your students. We can add those texts, so those annotations, the drawing, the shapes, images, even those voice notes within our PDF. So giving our students multiple ways to represent their learning and understanding. We've got great collaboration and feedback between teacher and student. Again, multiple modes between doing that. And then getting that literacy support from Read and Write as well. I've also included Snap and Read and Co-Writer as well. If you have districts that utilize Snap and Read, OrbitNote has become the new PDF reader and annotation for Snap and Read as well. So that's why I just highlighted that in there as well. So if you work with a district or our district that has Snap and Read, OrbitNote would also be your PDF solution as well. And then also we've added a really cool feature within our premium version of OrbitNote where we can actually insert some digital math and STEM with Equatio, one of our making math digital tools, which I'm very, very excited about. So again, being able to insert and do things with math now, again, with OrbitNote Premium is now possible with the power of Equatio. So let's talk a little bit about OrbitNote. You've got really two sides of it. You've got the web, we'll call it the web app, which is really just the website, which you can go to orbit.texthelp.com. It's going to have you sign in. Again, you'll use the same email and sign in that you would use for your read and write license. The web version is really meant for the teacher side of things as you're preparing to send something off to your students. So really, the web app is really meant for that teacher as they first share out that PDF with their students. We also have the OrbitNote extension. I've got a link to it right here as well. And what this does is it actually just does a couple more integration things. So it provides that additional functionality of that LMS integration with Google Classroom within Schoology. And it'll also open up those web pages, those web PDFs and local PDFs automatically if that's the setting you want. I'll also show you the prompt that you'll get to open a PDF from the web within OrbitNote. So we'll talk about that as well. So web app is just that website, basically, mostly used for teachers to get those documents ready to send off. And then you have that extension, which just really creates that LMS integration, opening those PDFs locally. So like I said, getting started at OrbitNote or at orbit.texthelp.com is where you as that teacher are going to first start off before you share that PDF with your students. Always just best practice to do that as it keeps everything that you're sharing with your students within kind of that same module so that when the student goes to open that document or PDF, it's going to open an OrbitNote for them. On this slide here, I've included a link right to all of some of the different features within OrbitNote. I'm not going to get to go through them all today, but you have this resource here. We've got short little videos on some of those different annotation tools that I won't have time to look at today. So feel free to check out that link here on our Text Help Academy, where that'll take you right over into that feature tour of each of those different ones. So where can OrbitNote be used? Really, Google Drive, OneDrive. So if you're Google, if you're Microsoft based, we work within both of those. We work with PDFs that are on the web. So those could be PDFs that you need to open from, a website or that are within a different website that you need to have read to students. You can have OrbitNote locally saved PDFs. So those will be those PDFs that maybe you've saved to your desktop that need to be shared with your students as well. And then, as I mentioned, we work with many learning management systems, Google Classroom, Schoology being some of the best kind of integration and easiest integration to pull those PDFs from those LMS and pull them into OrbitNote. As I mentioned, there's within Schoology and Google Classroom, we want to make sure that we have that OrbitNote extension. That's what creates that seamless flow, and it will prompt those students to open up those PDFs within Schoology, within Classroom. If you use Canvas, there's a little bit different of a setup for a Canvas integration as well. So please reach out if that's something you want to learn more about. But just again, OrbitNote, working with those management systems you're already using, pulling that PDF into OrbitNote to have it read and to do some really cool annotation things with. As I mentioned before, what's great about this is it creates kind of that workflow for teachers. So giving teachers that option of giving their students PDFs or those worksheets that they normally would print out and hand to students. Now you actually can share that digitally through your LMS system, have it open in OrbitNote, have your students share it back with you, and creating just a really accessible and engaging PDF versus what they can do, with that paper version of that document. So we're going to go into talking a little bit about inaccessible PDFs. And we have a feature within OrbitNote that helps make inaccessible PDFs accessible. I will tell you it is a premium feature. So it is that paid feature, and I will probably highlight that a couple times here. Because that's the key. That's one of the really cool features within OrbitNote Premium is the ability to take an inaccessible PDF and make it accessible where your students can utilize some of those things. So let's talk a little bit about what is an image-only PDF. And you're going to see this kind of GIF move here. And what you'll notice is I cannot grab the text. Okay, I can't grab each individual word. This text is not, it's what we call inaccessible. And my read and write, my normal read and write tools, like that text to speech, are just not going to work because I can't grab or read each word. With OrbitNote and the ability with that scan feature, we can OCR scan an entire document of text. So whether that's downloaded from, let's say, Teachers Pay Teachers, or whether that's simply this is a photocopy of an article, once we actually use that scan text feature, we can now see on the right-hand side where we actually have that ability to highlight that text. And we can also then have that text read word by word within our supports within OrbitNote and Read and Write. Shannon just asked, does the screenshot reader not provide the OCR feature on an inaccessible PDF? Shannon, that is a great question. And I'm gonna get to that and kind of show when we would use that screenshot reader and when we'd want to actually utilize the features within OrbitNote to do that. You are correct. The screenshot reader within Read and Write does have that functionality of being able to OCR scan text to have it make it accessible. But as I would mention, you'd want to pull those PDFs first into OrbitNote, because if they're accessible already, they're going to be able to use some of those features within OrbitNote. So that's a great call out there. So for that built-in scanning, again, this is a premium paid version. But what this will do is when the teacher takes their document and you upload it through your OrbitNote dashboard, when it comes in there, it's actually going to look at that document and say, hey, there's not any text here because it's not accessible. And it's actually going to prompt you to go ahead and scan that entire text. And so what that means is any words within this PDF now can become accessible, where we can use some of those features that are much easier to use, like our click and talk feature, which we can just simply click on text and it'll begin reading. And we don't need to use that screenshot reader, which from time to time can be quite clunky to me, you know, when you're trying to have an entire document read. So this built-in feature it's huge. Once you actually scan that text to make it accessible, it will become accessible. And when you share that with your students, they would already have that accessible form of that text. So that is that's the big thing here, is once you scan that text, it makes it accessible. Now, when you share it, it's accessible across your students. So love that functionality. So again, you're going to pull that into OrbitNote. It's going to prompt you to scan that text, and then you'll have that ability to have each word read word by word, as it's also highlighting the sentence and having each word read. So I know, like I said, that's that premium feature. So if that is something that you are interested in and learning more about some of those other premium features or pricing, please reach out to me, because that is the biggest thing that I see from educators who, how do I know if it's inaccessible or accessible, and then how do I make it that way? With that OrbitNote Premium, you then would have that option to do that. So one quick thing I want to highlight on that. So let's actually go ahead and we're going to go into kind of looking at some different PDFs and then how OrbitNote Toolbar works within there. So I'm going to first start. This is that web-based app, or that website that I mentioned before. So that's that orbit.texthelp.com. And like I said, this would be really, as the teacher, this would be how you'd probably want to upload your PDFs first before you share them out with your students. You have two different options. You can drag and drop or upload a PDF from your actual desktop or your downloads. You can also open that PDF from a Google Drive. And if you utilize Google Drive, this would be the route that I would go. It's really just in good practice. I always try to keep everything within an online document so that it makes it easier to share, it makes it easier to keep my my curriculum, my content in a more accessible way, as I can, categorize it in certain ways. So I always recommend using it through your Google Drive. So uploading that PDF through your Google Drive and actually sharing it through OrbitNote within there. So all I would simply do is select that PDF that I wanted to have open. And once I do that, it's going to pull that PDF into OrbitNote, as you can see here. So once my PDF is pulled into there, now you'll notice I have the functionality of my Orbit toolbar along the top, along with those great supports that I have within Read and Write. Really interesting about this document, I was kind of playing around with it. This document actually contains both accessible and inaccessible text, even though it all looks like it would be the same. You can see here, so this was actually a project management course that I was taking. These were some resources that I was given. So I can see here that like I can actually highlight this sentence here. So this is accessible text. So within my OrbitNote toolbar, all I simply have to do is select this feature here, which is my speak to click button. And then I can just simply click.
To effectively carry out the essential actions of.
And then I can actually then again have that paused. I love that functionality of having that text play, pause. Again, it'll highlight each sentence as you're going. So even though I wasn't sure if this was accessible or inaccessible, I have that ability because I pulled it into OrbitNote and some of it was accessible. I can use that click to speak feature, which if I want to come here now and read line, number 1,
Identifying and
just simply
managing
click
the stakeholders.
and it'll begin reading. So that's why I always say any PDF, I just pull it into OrbitNote because you're not going to know necessarily is it accessible or is it inaccessible until you have it into OrbitNote and you can do some of these and try some of these tools out on it. Now, what I will say is for some reason, like this section right here, where it talks about skills for effective stakeholder management, this is inaccessible. And I didn't even know that. I can't click on anything. I can't, if I use that click to speak, it's not doing anything because it's what we call inaccessible. So this is where if I had the premium version of OrbitNote, I would come to these 3 little dots on the right-hand side, and then I would come down here to scan that text. And like I said before, that is going to scan the entire text. So whether it was accessible text that I have in here or inaccessible, it's going to do it all. And it's going to make it accessible where I can do some of those things, click and speak to get that text to be read aloud. So within that, if I don't have that, then what I'm going to use is my screenshot reader. So there's a great question there, Shannon. So because this is inaccessible, I can't click it. This is where I would use that screenshot reader. All I would simply do, again, is click and drag to create that OCR box. Once I've done that, it will then begin reading that text.
Skills for effective stakeholder management. A stakeholder is.
And then I have my play, pause, stop features along the bottom here for that scan, for that screenshot reader, along with I can actually copy that text as well. So even if the document is inaccessible, I would still pull it in OrbitNote because you may find that some of that text is actually accessible. And what's great about it is if it is accessible or you want to make it accessible by scanning the text, that's where we can really start to then even utilize some of our really cool tools. So like, let's say, for example, I wanted to take some notes on this in a Google Docs. Well, I wanted to, capture this part right here. I can simply use my highlighting tool. So I just simply highlight that. I can simply press my yellow highlighter. And if there was something down here that I wanted to highlight as well, I can do that. And when I have, see, even that text is accessible. So this document has accessible and inaccessible. It's all over the place. Once I have those different things I want highlighted and pulled out, that's where I can go ahead, select that collect highlights, which is that same functionality on my read and write toolbar. I hit OK. And then what you'll notice is it's going to pull those highlights into a new Google Doc for me. And this makes all of a sudden a PDF where we were, typically talking about, did I not collect the right highlights here? Let's do just yellow. Getting a blank screen, but usually those pull right into that great Google Doc for me. Not sure why I'm not getting that right here. But it should be able to be pulled into that Google Doc where then I can start working on those notes or pulling out those important things from that PDF that I can do some additional things with as well. Within the annotation features within your OrbitNote toolbar, one that I always like to highlight, you've got your freehand draw tool, you've got your shapes. I think those are pretty self-explanatory. My favorite is our adding the text annotation. And the reason I really like this is because you're going to get some cool functionality within your students being able to respond into that PDF or to put their answers to that PDF there. So for example, I have the ability to use the word prediction. So I get that word prediction support within adding those words right within my document. I have speech to text, so I can speak and it will actually prompt within that box as well. And then again, I have that ability to really carry that text wherever I need, but having that support of word prediction, text to speech or speech to text within those text annotations gives those students that kind of additional support as they're working and filling out those worksheets within there. As the teacher, if I'm ready to go ahead and share this and I use Google Classroom as that integration, you'll notice a great Google integration feature on the right-hand side here. And when I click on that, it's going to bring me over to my Google Classroom where I can then go ahead and I can actually assign this PDF from OrbitNote. It'll create that assignment within my Google Classroom. So from that student side, when I'm actually ready to look at that document or open that document, it'll show up in my Google Classroom. And as the student, when I click on that PDF will open within my OrbitNote. And if I was using my student account, which I'm not, you would see a turn in button here where students can then actually turn that back into Google Classroom right from OrbitNote. I'm not in my student view, but you'll have that little send off arrow, which will send it back to their Google Classroom, where then the teacher can look at the assignment and then grade it from there. So that integration with Google Classroom is already built right within OrbitNote.
Kyle, can I ask a question about that? So can you go back and forth? Are you both commenting on OrbitNote on the same live document?
Yeah, so there's sort of so basically what happens is when you assign this via Google Classroom, it's going to create a copy for each student.
Yep.
You'll do that. And then when the student actually sends it off to their Google Classroom, they'll turn it in. And then the teacher will actually be able, when they go ahead and click on that and open it in, like they'll click on that student's actual PDF.
Right.
It'll open within the teacher's PDF, but it'll have all the students' annotations in there.
Okay. Can I add annotations as a teacher and send it back to the student?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
you can. Yes, you can actually, you wouldn't send necessarily, you wouldn't put annotations in there, but there is a comment feature that we have built in. So for example, if I wanted to, let me find some text that's accessible here.
Sorry, folks, if I took this over the
No, that's
30
okay.
mark.
No, that's a great point. Here we go. So let's say I wanted to add a note here for my students. If I just click on like anywhere on that text, I want that note, you're going to see this little kind of red note button pop up here on the right-hand side. And then within there, I have the ability to add and type comments. And then what can actually happen here is students and teacher can go back and forth in this space.
For feedback. Thank you.
Yes.
That's what I was hoping for.
Yep. Yeah.
Kyle, I have a question in the chat. This teacher just has the option to upload. Do I have to do something special to connect to Google Classroom?
Yep. So if you've uploaded, all that means is you need to, like, that's where I usually say connect it to your Google Drive, because it's saying you need to actually like upload and put that document into OrbitNote. You're kind of like in a viewer mode with that. So that's where I would highly recommend you add it to your Google Drive. And then when you connect it to that Google Drive, that's where you're going to see that option then to have that Google Classroom link on there, because it's going to actually make a copy like it would a Google Docs.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Oh, Caroline, who actually works from Texas, I would also have to, she's installed OrbitNote already. Yes, there could be that extension piece as well that might need to be added to your extensions as well.
And if you can't get that, reach out to one of us. We can try to work with you too to make sure.
Yep. One other thing I want to just quickly mention before I come back here to our resources. So I get this a lot of times. So let's say we wanted to have the Iowa's driver's license manual read to us. And Megan, thank you for this, because I was helping her through this PDF. So if I have the OrbitNote extension in there, look at what I have here right along the left-hand side. I actually have a prompt to open that within OrbitNote. What I would not recommend is trying to utilize the read and write screenshotter within a PDF in this view. That's where we'd want to actually really pull that into OrbitNote, because then we'd actually be able to see what's accessible, what's not accessible. So this is where I think a lot of people think, oh, now I use my screenshot reader, which you can, right? You can, but that's the limited functionality of what you're getting with that screenshot reader, right? Whereas if I pull that into OrbitNote, and when I have my extension downloaded, it will actually give me that little
Important
prompt.
message to drivers getting behind the wheel for the first time can be
And
a
now it's
scary but exciting
Going to read that.
experience.
So now if I pull it in here, it will actually,
Having the freedom to drive
It's
yourself
reading that
opens up a
document
whole new
somewhere.
world of
Are you hearing that?
possibilities. But being prepared and knowing
I don't
the
know where it
rules of the
went,
road
but
Yes.
it's
before you
reading.
turn the key will enhance safety for
Oh, and I
all
don't
sharing the road.
see the tab.
Understanding
either.
and implementing the elements contained in this driver's manual
Okay.
will set you on your way to becoming a safe driver.
That has never
The
happened.
details in the
I don't know
manual
where it is
will
reading it
explain
from.
more, but following these basic safety rules will get you started.
Okay.
Buckle up, no matter where you're sitting in the vehicle. Scent obey the
Okay.
speed limit.
It's gonna keep reading.
Scent give your full
All
attention to the
right.
task.
Last thing I want to leave you with, because we are out of time and this
Drive
is reading.
sober.
We've got some
Thank you
resources
for
here on the
taking the
last
time
slide.
to
So
learn
we've
the
got that
practical
free to
elements in
premium
this
matrix.
manual and
We've
combine
got some
these
different
with
playlists on
practice
YouTube
behind
that'll
the
show you some of
wheel.
those integrations we
Those
talked
two
about.
learning experiences and
Also
your
introducing to
commitment
OrbitNote to kind of
becoming a
give
safe
you that
driver
as
are
well.
appreciated by all
And
those
then
who share
being
lots of
able
our
to
ways.
also our support articles. There we go. There. Sorry about that. We've got resources built within here. Like I said before, if you have more specific questions, I know we kind of went high overview today looking at kind of all these different aspects, or want more information on that Google Drive integration, please reach out to me. That's what we're here to do. We're here to really help you kind of guide that workflow for you and your students as you work with PDFs in a more accessible and engaging way. So today, I think was just to show you what is possible. And then if you're looking, again, for any pricing or information, please, again, reach out to me. I'll help guide that conversation. Hopefully you gained some new things today. We ran into some technical things as we always do from time to time, but thank you for sticking with us, and stay warm out there. Thanks, everyone.